Fresh Squeeze Noise Eurorack Patch 7. So pretty much the same setup as always. I have my circadian rhythm clock going to the Tempi clock in. I have my ABCs from Bastl going to my output mixer. I did switch to 64 view mode on circadian rhythms, and I picked a couple of samples for Grandpa. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the outputs of Tempi and go into the trigger in of my Mutant hi-hats. I'm going to take the output of that and go straight in to my mixer. I'm going to take one of the outputs of the circadian rhythm and go into trigger B of the Grandpa. Then I'm going to take the output of that and go into the mixer. Then I'm going to add some steps for that. So now I'm going to take the 7 output and go to trigger A of Grandpa. And then we're going to add some steps for that. So now I'm going to take the output of Grandpa and go into the input of clouds. And then I'm going to take the output of clouds and run that into the mixer. I'm going to speed up the hi-hat. So I'm going to take another output from Circadian Rhythms and go into the trigger in of the Mutant bass drum. And then I'm going to take the output of the distortion and go into the mixer. Now I'm going to set some steps for that. Next, I'm going to take another output of the Circadian Rhythms and go into the trigger 1 of peaks. I'm going to use that as more of a bass drop type kick drum. I'm going to take the output of that and go into the mixer. Then we'll set some steps for that. Next, I'm going to take one of the outputs of Circadian Rhythm and go into the trigger of the Mutant snare. I'm going to take the snare out and go into the dub junior. And then I'm going to take the output of that and go into the mixer. Now I'm going to set some steps for that. And then I'm going to take one of the Tempi outputs and run it to the trigger of Maths. Then I'm going to take the output of that and run it to the time input on the dub junior. Now I'm going to slow this channel on the Tempi down. Now I'm going to take one more of the Tempi outputs and I'm going to run it to the clock in on the micro sequence by Pittsburgh. I'm going to take the pitch out of that and go into the 1 volt per octave of Braids. I'm going to take the gate output of this and send it to the trigger in of Braids. And then I'm going to find a sound I like. I'm going to take the output of Braids and run it into the other input of clouds. And then I'm going to take the other output and run that to the mixer. Now I'm going to run the sequencer. I'm going to slow that down a little bit. I like it fast. I'm going to take this output of Maths and go into the timbre input of Braids. I'll take the output of this LFO and go into the color input of Braids. Take another one of the Tempi outputs and go into the input of Wogglebug. I'm going to take the output of the Wogglebug and I'm going to run that to the filter, the binary filter from Pittsburgh. Then I'm going to take the output of that and run that into the mixer. Then I'm going to take another one of the outputs of the Tempi and go into the other trigger in, channel 4 trigger in for Maths, and I'm going to take the output of channel 4 and I'm going to run that into the CV for the frequency of the filter. I'm going to slow that down. we'll call this Robots on a Busy Street in the year 3000. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. If you want to see more stuff like this, please subscribe. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.